Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Anne-Sophie. I'm a knitter from Belgium. This is my cat, Lilla, and I think I managed to beat my chronic castanitis, or at least sort of. Usually for podcast episodes, I stick to the traditional, structure of finished objects first, whips next, and then acquisitions. I will do the same for this one. I'll divide the whips based on whips you know of already, if you're not new to the Candid Knitting podcast, and then new cast-ons that I haven't shown before and may have only hinted at or not even shown on my Instagram yet. And then there will be a whole lot of acquisitions. I forgot to do acquisitions in my last podcast. I also had so many whips that I didn't really allow myself to cast on new things until now. I have, I think, 3 new cast-ons, of which 2 just small projects. And I kind of ended up channeling my crazy cast-on energy into acquiring an abundance of yarn. We're talking irresponsible, absurd amounts of yarn, and I'm thinking, because I have so many finished objects from my many whips that I've been trying to finish, and then so many acquisitions, I think this will either end up being the longest podcast episode that ever podcast episoded, or I'll end up dividing it into 2 podcasts. And then in this video, you'll end up seeing my finished objects and the whips you know of. And then in the next part that will be uploaded shortly after this video, if I do split it into 2 parts, will be my new cast-ons and my acquisitions. I'll just put up here whether I split it or not so you know what to expect. I think this is only knowledge for future me. I don't know what's gonna happen here. Maybe I'll yap so fast that this will end up being just one video, but yeah, we'll see. Now, first things first, in my last video, I announced a giveaway and I let you guys know that I would let you know who the giveaway winner was in my next video. This is my next video, so I'll just quickly pop up the giveaway winner name on the screen. Here you go. Congratulations. Please reach out to me through email or over Instagram. I'll find a way to verify whether it is really you, and then I can send you the €50 gift card to Knitting for Olive that you just won. Congratulations, and thanks so much to everyone who participated in the giveaway and left such a nice comment on my last video. The response was overwhelming, and I feel so happy. That said, let's hop into it with my first finished object. That's actually what I'm wearing as well. This is my pearl jacket by Garno Slicks or Helena Beba. Rather than with, I think, a DK and a mohair or a lace weight that the pattern calls for, I knit it with a straight up worsted yarn. I used filcolana Peruvian, which is one of my favorite yarns, and held it single on 4.5mm needles, so I sized down my needles. So this is my pearl jacket. It is a drop shoulder cardigan pattern knit in all over broken rib stitch. I knit a size medium and I cropped the body ever so slightly because 1, I am a short girly, and 2, I kind of lost yarn chicken. I had 10 balls of the filcolana Peruvian and I ended up using, I think, 9.8. I made sure to have at least 1 skein remaining for the button band, and I ended up using most of that skein. I'll insert the precise amount that I used of the last skein for the button band in Ravelry, but it must have been 80% of that skein. I really love this color. It was so fun to be knitting up for the spring. It's called Rime Frost. I am, however, not entirely sure I'll be wearing this a lot outside of the spring. I'm not sure it's entirely my color. It's a lot brighter than what I usually go for, and it's also more of a greenish blue than what I would usually go for. It's very outside my comfort zone. I don't know, maybe I'll learn to love it and I'll end up getting used to the color and think it suits me really well, and maybe I won't. All that I know is that it is super duper comfortable, and I will definitely be knitting another worsted weight wool cardigan in the near future. I get why it's called the pearl jacket, because it is just the perfect jacket to throw on in the spring. Like in the morning when you're cold, it insulates just well enough, and then when it gets really hot, it doesn't fully overheat you, especially with the v-neck. It's a brilliant, brilliant design, and I don't know, I'm very much team worsted weight cardigan after knitting this. It's also a very fun pattern to knit. I was so shocked to see also how nicely the broken rib stitch blocked out. I did not expect it to look so nice because this is knit flat mostly. So my sleeves were really, really neat, but the knit flat part of the body, my stitches were kind of slanted. I think I knit sort of at an angle, which makes my ribbing when I'm knitting flat kind of like a little bit braidy and a little bit slanting, like every row slants in the other direction. And I was kind of scared that that wouldn't block out fully, but it really did. It looks beautiful now. I feel like the details along which you increase both at the v-neck and at the shoulder edges look immaculate and blocked out so, so beautifully. I did notice, however, like with this stitch pattern, it grows a lot and it like settles into its look, I guess, with blocking. Whereas when you're knitting it and before blocking, I guess, it kind of cinches together. And I missed a pretty big mistake that I made. On the front, I don't know exactly where it is, I'll try to show it to you in B-roll. There's one row with the increases where I forgot I had to do ribbing. So there's 3 rows of knit stitches just along this detail. If you know it's there, you can notice it. But if you don't know, I don't think it's super duper noticeable, like from afar. It just kind of irks me, you know, like knowing it's there. But I remember watching someone's, I think it was a knit and chat or a podcast. I don't remember who it was. I think it was a UK based creator who said that there is this old myth that might be an Irish saying where people say that you need to leave a little mistake in your knits because you put so much of your soul into it that you need to make sure it has a place to escape. So this little mistake I'm just seeing as a place for my soul to escape, and then yeah, that way I won't end up creating like a ton of horcruxes by knitting so much. I don't know, it's just a silly little thing that I've been thinking of to soothe myself when I make little mistakes in my knitting. I've been learning to accept them and not be too much of like a perfectionist about my knitting, so this one is a good test of my patience and self-control when it comes to not trying to go in and fix it afterwards. Now these buttons, I don't remember exactly. Oh, I do. I got them at Veritas, which is a craft store here in Belgium. They have a lot of buttons, so I ended up getting these because I knew I would be knitting this cardigan, and I think pearly white buttons with like a light blue yarn are just the best way to go. It makes it pair with a white t-shirt or a white top so nicely. You can just pair it with a pair of jeans, or as I'm doing right now, the podcaster special, a pair of joggers. I think it's really cute. I tried to raise them a little bit, but they're still like bumping out a tiny bit. I was impatient. I wanted to do it quickly, so I ended up, I don't know, sewing them in a tiny bit crookedly, but again, that's just a test of my perfectionism, and I'm gonna let that go and just let that be. It adds to the handmade touch, and I think it looks really, really cute. I have also nothing but good things to say about this pattern. This was so fun. I knit it together with my friend Victoria from Blank Stitches. We both used the same yarn and we had so much fun. And yeah, that's my early spring winter knit that's done and that I'm so, so, so excited about. I love this thing to death. I think I'll be wearing it so much. I wore it to my Easter get together with my family yesterday with the white dress, and it was just the perfect way to wear a cute white slip dress for spring and not be cold and have this very fun Eastery color as well. It's the perfect spring cardigan. I'll be popping this out every spring, I think. I'm just curious to see how much I'll be wearing it outside of spring, if that makes sense. Like, am I going to pull this out during the winter for like a bright pop of color? Am I not? We'll see. I'll report back to you maybe later, but yeah. It's really fun. I'm very, very happy about this knit. Now, the next thing that I finished, or well, the first thing I've finished after filming my last podcast, was my partner's hanstholm sweater that I knit with Knitting for Olive merino held double in the color Dusty Petroleum Blue. It blocked out so beautifully. Look at this. It's been folded up in his closet, so that's why it looks a bit weird. You know what? Let me just quickly try this on, and then I'll yap over it with some B-roll to show you what it looks like finished. After having a lot of trouble knitting this simple raglan yoke with my gauge, if you want to know more about this, check out my podcast episode 8. I actually did end up being successful in knitting a hanstholm sweater that fit my partner. I was surprised to have trouble with this pattern since I never really have trouble with petite knit patterns usually, but I used Knitting for Olive held double, so 2 fingering weights on 4mm needles to get a DK weight gauge, whereas petite knit suggests using peruvian, which is more of a heavy DK weight, I think, because it has the same meterage as this yarn as filcolana Peruvian, which is classified as a worsted yarn. So maybe I'll have to knit this again with the Knitting for Olive heavy merino and see how that works out, although I'm hesitant to knit it again after the issues I faced with it. I think it's maybe one of Petite Knit's older patterns, I'm not sure. It's just a beautiful raglan though, really, along one raglan stitch with short 1x1 ribbing. I think I knit the sweater just a tad too short for my partner, but otherwise it fits him perfectly. As I was knitting it, I did think about adding a few extra short rows to the neck to make it raised a little bit more. As you can see, it's not super duper raised. It also blocks pretty straight. I think I'm gonna insert an elastic and block it more in like a circular shape. I think that will help a lot too. But it sits quite close to my partner's neck. It's not super perfectly fitting around his neck. So if you're knitting this, I would advise to add some extra short rows, I think, but I will be adding extra length. I forgot to take into account how much Knitting for Olive merino shortens with wear and with blocking. It does widen a little bit, but yeah, my partner loves this sweater. He got so many compliments about it at work. He's not really a knitwear person, but this yarn, well, it blocks out so beautifully and everything that it could pass for something store-bought, and I love when that happens with a knit. He came home and he was like, this person was shocked, this person was shocked, this person was shocked, and everyone was like just complimenting him on his sweater, really, after which he could say, thanks, Anne-Sophie made it, and then, oh, I don't know, it's so nice. He was so proud to wear it, and that warms my heart, so I can't wait to knit him another sweater in the future, but I'll have to lengthen this one first and add an elastic to the neckline to make that fit him a little bit better. I think this is like a DK weight simple merino sweater is like one of the best things you can knit for someone. It's such a versatile kind of knit to wear. He can wear it to like any occasion. You can dress it up, you can dress it down, wear it with jeans, wear it with dress pants. You can use it for a look in so many different ways. You can use it every season, I think. It's like thin enough to throw on a cold summer evening, but also warm enough to wear during winter with like a proper t-shirt underneath and a thick coat when it's not too cold outside. So I really, really love this pattern, and I will be knitting my partner more DK weight sweaters in the future. They have the Knitting for Olive heavy merino in Dusty Petroleum Blue. He loves this color, so I'm thinking I'll probably knit him his next sweater with the heavy merino and then compare how these work and how they wear, like do a little wear test maybe, and then I'll be able to figure out which of those two yarns work best for my partner, because he loves this so much. Like if I knit him another sweater, it's going to be Knitting for Olive merino yarn. So yeah, I found a really good formula for knitting for my partner. I hope the sweater curse doesn't end up hitting us after 7 years of being together. I don't think it will. I knit him a sweater before though, but he never wore that one. That was a huge flop. But yeah, I don't know. That's the hanstholm sweater. Very excited about how that turned out, and very excited about how Knitting for Olive merino knits up Al double. Wow. Such a perfect thing for a DK weight knit. I need a sweater with that yarn combination for myself, honestly. Now, the next thing I finished, you might remember, I tried to self-draft leg warmers for my younger sister. She wanted chunky leg warmers with like a ruffle edge that like flew out. It looked like a cauliflower that was about to explode. It was the ugliest thing I've ever knit in my life. I ended up frogging them entirely and knitting them with a DK yarn held single instead of double on 3mm needles with a 2x2 rib, a ruffle on one side, and then just a tubular bind off on the other because my sister wanted these holes that she could put her ankles into. She wanted them pretty long too so she can fold them. I'm not sure how exactly this is like gonna work as leg warmers. Like I don't necessarily see the vision, but my sister is a fashion girly. She has a degree in fashion technology, so I trust her and I trust her vision. I'm gonna try and score a picture of her wearing these with her chunky white shoes under like a skirt or something, or with trousers, I don't know, however she's gonna style it, and I'll report back to you. I think it's safe to say this self-drafting situation is fairly successful and I'm so glad it ended up working. She wanted white ones, so I went with a DK weight superwash sock yarn so she could easily pop it in the wash because I'm anticipating these will get dirty if she uses them a lot. I went with Sunless Garn Perfect in the basic white color. So it's a DK weight sock yarn. I think it's like 20% nylon or 25% nylon, and the rest is just superwash wool. It looks beautiful. It blocks out beautifully for ribbing, and I am so happy with how these turned out. They're so soft too. I ended up having loads of the yarn left over because I didn't end up holding them double, and I'll be knitting a lot of cute socks with that in the future. I think you can't go wrong with a white DK weight sock, so I'm actually really glad that I didn't end up needing to use all the yarn. You could also easily use it for like home accessories or a blanket or something, or a baby knit even in the future because it's so soft. This yarn in my experience also doesn't pill too much. It pills a little bit after the first use and then it just looks really good. So yeah, very happy about these. If you want to know exactly how I knit them, go to my Ravelry. I'll link it down below, but I took elaborate notes of how I knit these and what I did. I think I just need to add in the lengths of like how long I knit everything to get to this look, and then the notes will be entirely complete for you to follow exactly what I did and knit yourself a pair of these as well. I included instructions for doing a ruffle on both sides. I included instructions for how I did this little hole. It is not super duper stretchy though, so yeah, I don't know, it's pretty like tight around your heel. So I'll report back and let you know what my sister thinks of it. But well, if she doesn't like that, you know what? Just she can fold them in on themselves. Ta-da, fix that. Perfect solve. I hope she likes them. I hope she's gonna wear them a lot. And this is also my formal apology to her for not including the ugly version for longer in my other video because I didn't want to talk about them for too long. And she felt bad for them that they didn't get their proper time to shine. So I hope she thinks they got their proper time to shine in this podcast. Now, these are little cauliflowers. Oh yeah, when I was blocking this really looked like when you boil cauliflower in water. I don't know. It just looks like cauliflower being boiled. It was so silly. I call these the cauliflower leg warmers because honestly, what else would you call this? They're so silly, but I think they turned out really cute and I hope my sister's gonna be very happy with them. I'll give them to her soon now that I was able to film. Perhaps she'll only be starting to wear them in the fall. It might be a little bit too warm for them now. Perhaps she'll pop them on during the spring. We'll see. Anyway, I'm just glad this is another thing ticked off the list. Now, the next thing I have to show you is almost fully ticked off the list. All that I have left to do is block this, and that is the prettiest baby blanket that ever baby blanketed. Ta-da! I can't believe I made this. This is a baby blanket for my partner's best friend who is becoming a first-time dad, and I knit it in colors that fit his and his partner's aesthetic. I thought it was also gender neutral enough because they're not announcing the sex of the baby until it is born. So exciting. My partner and I both think it's going to be a different biological sex. We'll see who wins that bet. The one who wins gets to pick the gift off the baby registry. Fingers crossed that I'll be right. I think it's gonna be a boy. This blanket, though, is the most important thing to talk about, not the baby's biological sex. That doesn't matter too much. Yeah, I am absolutely obsessed with this. This was also so fun to knit. I scoured all of Ravelry for a baby blanket pattern, and I found this free pattern called the Pastel Rainbow Baby Blanket. I chose colors that I thought would work really well, and I adapted the pattern just ever so slightly. Normally, the pattern does not have white edges on the side. I did those with intarsia. You can see the intarsia details here on the back. You basically just twist the yarn around itself. It was really hard to weave in all of the ends though. That took me like a solid evening, but I think I did an okay job. They look pretty neat to me. Yeah, so this is the back. I don't think the back looks too bad. Ta-da! Yeah, so I did intarsia for the edges rather than having the colors flow through. This was quite a hassle. I'm not sure I will be doing that again in the future if I knit up another one of these, although I do think that will depend greatly on the colors I end up choosing. I used Drops Baby Merino held double on 4.5mm needles. I think this is going to stretch out quite a lot with blocking because this is a superwash, heavy fingering, light sport weight yarn, and I kind of regret using 4.5mm needles instead of 4mm needles. I think I might have to pop this in the dryer to ensure that it looks nice and not like too stretched out after blocking, because I don't think the stitches look as nice if it's like stretched out too much. But we'll see about that when I block it. I'm just anticipating that when I knit this in the future, because I probably will. This is such a good gift. I've gotten so many people on Instagram asking me about the pattern and everything just because, I don't know, how can you not? This is so gorgeous. Yeah, so when I knit this again in the future, I'll definitely use, I think, or have to use a 4mm needle instead of 4.5, but either way, I love this so much. The possibilities with this pattern are also so endless. There's so many color combinations you could do. I'm very happy with this one. I ended up using about 20 grams for each color repeat. That made me need like 10 grams extra of each color, so I did not have enough with one ball of each color. I had to buy one extra ball of all 5 colors, which was a bit devastating because that almost doubles the price of the project, but it's really fun that I have all of this extra yarn now because I can make colorwork sweaters for the baby that perfectly match its blanket. How cute is that going to be? I think in the winter I'm going to knit the Knitting for Olive dot sweater for a baby and then use the same colors in the same order, and it's gonna match the blanket so cutely. I made it a size that will fit the stroller, I think, from what I looked up online. I know nothing about babies. I hope the size is going to be alright. If it's not, they'll use it on the couch, whatever, I don't know. I think it's just really cool to give a very aesthetically pleasing handmade baby gift to someone. Also, this stitch was so easy. It's just a 4-row repeat. It's so easy to remember. It's so much fun. There's just garter stitch edges in the middle. Such a fun, quick, cool knit. I recommend this to everyone looking for a pattern to knit up for a baby. I think I would love receiving this. I know baby blankets are a very popular baby knit because they're so versatile and they get a lot of use, whereas baby clothes, babies grow out of really quickly. So yeah, all that yapping just to say this is one of the nicest things I've ever knit. I'm almost sad I have to give it away because it's so pretty. I'm fairly certain that I'll want to knit an adult size version of this blanket for myself at one point. I think I'd like actually a rainbow pastel one for myself, but I'll talk about that more in the later part of this video. Now that's it for my finished objects. Let's get into my whips. Both of the first whips that I have to talk about are whips you know of and are like borderline finished. The first whip I want to talk to you about is my heart chain sweater. Yay, here it is once more. I am about this far into the second sleeve. I'm past half of the second sleeve, I think. Just giving you a second to take in her beauty. She's so pretty. She's so warm and fluffy. Like even unblocked, this already looks majestic. I'm knitting my heart chain sweater on the recommended needle size, which is 5.5mm needles on my Likke needles. And I am using filcolana Peruvian Highland wool again, which is a worsted weight yarn, same as this one, held with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the color Dusty Rose. I think I'll have used about 10-11 skeins of the Peruvian and about 5 balls of the soft silk mohair, but I'll report back to you once I finish the second sleeve. I might have enough left of the yarn to knit a hat that matches my sweater, which would be so stinking cute. I have no excuse for not having finished this yet. This is my favorite thing that I've ever knit. I can see you be like, Anne-Sophie, if you love it so much, why is this not yet finished? You're not going to be able to wear it anymore when you finish it now because it's going to be too hot. And you know, you're right, but also I've been procrastinating finishing this because I don't want this knit to end. I have been having so much fun with this that I don't want it to be over. I deeply fear the black hole that I will fall into when I finish knitting this up. I already bought yarn for a second heart chain sweater, but I know I'll probably only cast that on in the fall, and I'm just so sad about having to wait to knit this again. I know I'm gonna love to wear this, and I really want to wear it before it gets like too warm. It probably already is too warm to wear it, but this is such a fun knit. It's so silly. I'm knitting this as part of a group chat. I'm gonna be the last one to finish this, and I'm the one hosting the group chat, which I don't think is a bad thing. If I'm going to be doing more of these tiny, casual little group knit-alongs on Instagram, I think it's good if I'm the last one to finish something because I don't want to rush other people to finish their knits. I am not a person who stands behind rushing finishing a knit. I think it's important you get to enjoy a knit. I am really enjoying this whip, and I think it makes sense for me to procrastinate finishing it and to give myself like a few rows every now and then and really enjoy everything about this whip and enjoy it to the fullest. Yeah, my next thing that I'm going to cast on for a group knit along is going to be, I think, a Madeline sweater. It's going to be my birthday this week. On Thursday, the 24th of April, I'm going to cast on my Madeline sweater. If anyone wants to knit it along with me, let me know and I'll create another little group chat to give us the double dopamine of knitting something and then talking about it with other people who are knitting it as well. I'll talk more about my Madeline sweater later in this video or in my next video when I talk about the yarn, but so I'll be casting that on. I'll be creating a group chat soon. If you want me to add you into it, shoot me a little DM and I'll pop you into the group chat when I make it. It will be in the upcoming next few days. Take your time to decide if you want to join or not because I'm going to take my time knitting that pattern. Like the heart chain group chat hasn't closed down yet because I'm still going strong. It's just going to be a fun little group chat for who wants to knit it together and who wants, because it's a full-on lace cardigan, like as this is fully cabled. If you want some support or like you think you might need help with the pattern or something, it's also going to be my first fully lace pattern, like my first fully lace knit. So I might end up needing some help in the group chat. So yeah, anyway, all that to say, if you're interested in knitting the Madeline sweater along with me and other fun people, as we did with the heart chain sweater, or as we are doing with the heart chain sweater, shoot me a DM and yeah, I'll put you into the group chat. You can shoot me a DM in like 1 or 2 months time. I'll probably still be knitting the Madeline sweater at that time, so I can pop you into the group chat anytime you want if it's still running. So if you're interested, that's all you gotta do. I'll pop you into the chat. But yeah, the sweater is still not done. I have nothing but really excited things to say about this. I've yapped about it a lot already, so I won't be saying too much anymore. If you haven't heard me yap about it yet, this is a very nice drop shoulder pattern by From Mayo. It is fully charted, so you get the fun, ecstatic feeling every time you cross off a line of the chart, which is just so much fun. It's very beginner friendly because the cables aren't mirrored. I find that when cables are mirrored, especially if you end up knitting in the round for a while, it gets kind of distracting and you end up making mistakes, and you have a cable that goes to the left the whole time, and then one of the cables goes to the right, and then you have to fix that, and that's super stressful. So yeah, you don't have that with this pattern, which I absolutely adore about it. It just looks so pretty too. It's so perfectly thought out. The only thing that I had difficulty with, and that other people had difficulty with, was matching up the ribbing of the neckline with the stitch pattern. I think I did an okay-ish job. It's not like 100% symmetrical, but it looks pretty cute. It looks good enough for me. I got it on like my second or third try, so it wasn't that bad. I know I said this was going to be finished in my next podcast. This is the next podcast and it is not finished, but I don't know what to say. I love this whip so much. I want it to be a whip forever. I'm sorry. You know what? No, I'm not sorry. I'm enjoying this so much. I'm really not even sorry. The last whip that I have that I've talked about before is also almost done. This is my Amy slipover from the Sonneskgarn Soft for Women or Mycket till Dame booklet. Wait, what's the front? Oh, this is the front. Ta-da! This is looking so tiny. I'm gonna prove to you that it's not tiny. It's just looking so cropped because this little tassel thingy is still on the needles. Stretched out, this is what it looks like. So I think it's gonna fit quite well. It's just gonna be a little cropped, but that's what I want it to be, to wear it over like skirts and dresses. This is a one size pattern, so if you want it to be bigger or smaller, you need to do some calculating work, which isn't great, but I bought the booklet not knowing this, so I went ahead and knit that anyway, but I would be hesitant to recommend it to others because it is as far from size inclusive as it could be. I'm lucky I fit into the sizing, but if you don't, although I do think if you don't fit into the sizing, this would not be very hard to figure out how to make it bigger. Like I'm thinking, I thought my mom was interested in maybe knitting one too, and I don't think it would be too hard for her to figure out how to make it fit her. So that's also like, that's my 2 cents on that. I modified the pattern because it is a turtleneck normally with like a 20 centimeter 2x2 ribbed turtleneck. I left that out and I went for a folded neckline. I knit 6 centimeters. I knit 11 centimeters and then I folded down the neckline. I regret not modifying the collar more. I would have wanted more stitches over here on the side than there are right now. Because with a turtleneck, I don't mind it being huge, but for the folded collar, I think this is a bit too big for my liking. This knit up so fast with regards to like the body. There's this pretty garter edge on the side, and then it's just stockinette and a 2x2 ribbed edge at the bottom. That knit up so quickly on 3.5 millimeter needles. I'm using a fingering weight and a lace mohair held together as suggested in the pattern. I'll just quickly yap about that before I continue talking about the pattern. So this is Drops Flora. It is an alpaca wool blend that I've had in my stash for the longest time. It's the color medium gray. It's this charcoaly heathered gray color, and I'm holding it with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in this coolish dark gray shade. When I bought it, it was called Slate, and I talked about it in earlier podcasts, and I said it has been discontinued. Fun fact, someone in the comments was kind enough to let me know it has not been discontinued, it has just been renamed. So this is now named Thundercloud. I think this has to do with the fact that they introduced a no-waste wool over at Knitting for Olive, and one of the colors of the no-waste wool is Thundercloud, so I think they renamed this soft silk mohair to match that colorway. What I have to say about this pattern and why it has taken me so long to finish after this being like the fastest thing I ever knit is, well, to nobody's surprise, these tassel thingies you use to tie it up on the sides. It's gonna look like that with a little bow, you know, and this is gonna fall straighter down and way more drapey once it's blocked, and that's how the slipover is gonna fit. This is such a terrible thing to knit. I hated every single part of this, and I am hating every single part of this as well. I'm about this far. You need to knit to like 5 centimeters. But so what you do is you cast on with a crochet hook like over 100 stitches, then you pick up like another 100 and that many stitches on the body, and then you cast on with the crochet hook another crazy amount of stitches, and then you have to bind them all off with tubular bind off. But because this is 2x2 rib, I had to switch all of these stitches around to get them into a 1x1 rib position before binding them off. I'm actually wrong, it's not tubular bind off, it's just Italian. So if you don't know, Italian bind off is when you just do the sewn part of the bind off, whereas tubular bind off is if you, before you go into the sewing part of the bind off, you do 2 rows of double knitting. I prefer tubular bind off over Italian bind off, but here I'm very glad I didn't do tubular and that the pattern doesn't call for a tubular. But so I did do Italian bind off after switching these things places. I talked in my last video about how I hate doing a tubular or Italian bind off on 2x2 rib, and people ended up sending me tutorials and letting me know that you don't actually need to do that and that there's another way. I will be using those in the future, but for now, because I've done the other way on my other parts of my whips and like on my heart chain sweater as well, I won't be trying it out on these whips yet. So I'm sad that I only learned about this later, because now I have to do the old school version on this and it's gonna take ages to do, but I'm just gonna try and force myself to sit through it. I actually was really smart and I tricked myself into doing this by casting on a DK weight pair of socks. I'll talk about this. How long have I been filming? I'm officially going to split up this video, so I'll talk about this new cast on in my next video. But so I told myself I was allowed to cast on the first of a pair of socks on 3mm needles, so a DK weight pair of socks. So when I finished that first sock, I would only allow myself to cast on the second sock if I finished this on the 3mm needles first. So I can't knit the second one of the pair of socks that's been exciting me so much until I finish this, and that's what's going to motivate me to finish my A&E slipover. So I think this is definitely going to be finished soon because I want to continue knitting on my DK weight socks that I've been knitting, and yeah, this will probably be a finished object in my next video, this and the heart chain sweater. I'm going to get over myself, I think, finally, and finish the heart chain sweater because I want to cast on the Madeline sweater without feeling guilt over not having finished the heart chain sweater yet. But yeah, that's my final whip from my whip overview. The astute viewer among you might realize that there's still a lot of whips that seem to be hibernating or must have been frogged if I'm not knitting on them and I've cast on new things. I am leaving some of my whips to the side for a second. I think I've done very well with getting through my many whips, and I'm allowing myself some cast on energy and some spring knitting and some fun for the spring and the summer, and I'll be picking up some of the whips that I haven't picked back up yet in the fall. So I'll be doing part 2 of my whip down or my whip face off in the fall. I think what I have left to finish is I need to figure out what to do with my blouse number 1 light. I need to redo my holly cardigan. I was going to do those in the fall anyway, and now I've just also moved my Marin tee and my Agnieszka cardigan into the fall knitting. Pick them back up then sphere for now. So mentally, I've just let them go for a little bit. I think I've done so well with getting through my whips in a relatively quickly time frame that I'm allowing myself some new cast-ons, but I'm not going crazy with them. Just spoiler alert, I will be talking about 3 new cast-ons in the next part of this podcast. Those will be 2 pairs of socks, the DK weight pair of socks I hinted at already, fingering weight pair of socks because I only have big whips left right now and I just had a strong need for portable whips to take along with me, and then 1 stockinette garment that I cast on because I was ill and I had no stockinette patterns left that I was knitting on, so I was in desperate need of one of those, and I think it's very easy to justify all of those. What's not easy to justify is the crazy amount of yarn that I bought. So the first cast on I have to talk through with you today is a pair of DK weight socks that I have hinted at. These look a bit frumpy because they haven't been blocked yet, but these are the flowerknot socks by Laura Moratz. They're an all-over cabled flower-looking stitch on a DK weight sock yarn. I'm using leftover Sunless Gone Perfect from my sister's leg warmers that I knit, and it's looking like this. It's looking really cute. It's just the white color. It is a DK weight classic wool sock yarn with some nylon or polyamide content in there. It's superwash. This pattern has a gusset and a heel flap with slip stitches for its construction, and 3 sizes. I'm knitting the size 2, which has a much longer cuff than the size 1. I don't entirely like the way this cuff looks, so I regret not knitting it shorter. I strongly urge you to try on these socks as you knit them, because when I will be knitting these again, I'll be shortening the cuff. I only have one here and I can't show you the needles I'm using for them because I am tricking myself into finishing my Amy slipover. I knit the first one up of these socks and I'm so excited about these socks that I really want to cast on the second one, finish them, get to wear them, take cute pictures, but I'm not allowing myself to cast on the second one until I finish my Amy slipover. I'm very excited to cast on the second one of these socks. I think they're so cute and I strongly recommend this pattern to everyone. I've been having so much fun with these. The only thing I have to say about them is that I would have loved to knit the cuff a little bit shorter, and my friend Victoria, she knit the flowerknot mittens first and then she knit these socks, and she luckily did so because she let me know that the charts are exactly the same for both patterns, but they look entirely different. So the charts in the sock pattern look a little bit messy and hard to read compared to the ones in the mitten pattern, and my friend Victoria was so sweet to send the mitten chart to me, so I've been using that instead of the one in the sock pattern. It is, however, not like super necessary to be able to read the chart at all times. If you're an avid cable knitter, I don't think you need to worry about the charts. It's just nice to know that if you plan on knitting both or if you've knit both, it's easier to work with the chart from the mitten pattern. It is, however, the easiest chart to remember, even though it ends up looking quite intricate. It is so nice and easy to memorize and just knit these socks on the go. I love this to bits and I can't wait to knit the second sock of these and get to wear them. The thing about them, the cuffs being so long, is that it will fit really nicely in my Dr. Martin boots, so I am happy about that. I do hope this yarn, the white yarn, won't end up looking like grayish or have like a weird look where there's friction going on in the boots, if you know what I mean. The next project that I cast on is the Oona socks from my 52 Weeks of Socks book. I am currently on the second of these socks. I bought these cute little stitch markers at filcolana in Rotterdam when I was there with my partner last weekend. Wait, let me just show you the tiny one. Look how cute. They have tiny ones, medium-sized ones, and then I have some bigger ones. I just started the cuff of my second sock. This is my first sock, also not blocked yet. I love just blocking my socks when I have both of them so I don't waste water. I did a twisted rib for this sock instead of the 1x1 rib the pattern calls for, and I am following the chart mostly of this pattern, which is just beautiful. It's this gorgeous lace sock. This is my first pair of lace socks. I think they're looking really cute. They look like they're way too stretchy and my gauge is way too loose, but when I try this on, it fits me really well and it does feel quite snug, so I'm not too worried about it. At first I thought, oh no, should I have knit this on like 2mm needles instead of 2.25 ones? But I don't think that's still a problem right now. I'm knitting it in Lang Yarn's Yowl in like a dusty rose color. It is color number 830219. I got this at a local yarn store where I went with my friend Freya. I saw this pink and I just fell in love and immediately wanted to cast on a pair of socks. I didn't have any small patterns anymore that I could work on. I only had big garment whips, so I allowed myself to cast this on. As I was saying earlier, I'm really all over the place right now. Apologies for that. But as I was saying earlier, I'm only following the stitch count and the chart for for this pattern. I think the 52 Weeks of Socks book is wonderful and it has some wonderful patterns, but I find the way most of the patterns are written up to be quite confusing and not as easy or like intuitive for me to follow. So as my friend Victoria again suggested, when she knit these, she followed the petal drop socks pattern by Florence Miller for all of the other parts of the sock knitting, and I ended up doing the same as well. So for the short rows on the gusset and on the heel flap and gusset mostly, and just this part of the sock, I ended up referencing that one, but I didn't end up needing to reference the pattern as much because I've knit enough socks to just kind of know how to intuitively knit a gusset and heel flap and toe on a fingering weight pair of socks to make it fit me nicely, which is just so fun. What's really fun about this wool yarn is that it comes with this reinforcement thread. It is located on the inside. I don't know if you can see, but I can't really twist this because there's one on the inside of this skein. This is the one from the first skein. It matches the color exactly, and you can hold the reinforcement thread with the yarn, which I did for the heel flap and the bottom of the heel here, and for the toes. I think you're able to see like how much thicker the stockinette looks on the toe than it does on the entire sole of the foot. I wonder how much reinforcement thread is in each of these, to what extent the meterage in here matches the meterage of the yarn, because I would have loved to use it for the entire sock, if I'm honest. I had a lot of trouble finding a pattern that I could knit with this. I don't remember which pair of socks I cast on first. Oh, the Poet socks. I cast on the Poet socks by Sari Nordlund first, and it was so off gauge and so floppy because this fingering weight yarn is like a very light fingering weight. It's so thin. I had a lot of trouble making my gauge look nice. I don't know, I just knit this much of the cuff and I ended up frogging it entirely because it just looked too loose and I didn't have 2mm needles on me. I didn't feel like knitting a pair of socks on 2mm needles, if I was honest, so I just didn't end up knitting it like that. I ended up frogging that, and then I cast on the Fairy Maiden socks by This Handmade Life. That did work really well in terms of gauge with this yarn, but after doing like one or two of the lace repeats or the cable repeats, I don't know, I kind of realized that it looked like a bunch of angry owls. It was cracking me up so much and it was kind of disturbing me. It didn't look cute anymore. I didn't feel like using this delicate, beautiful, dusty pink yarn for angry owl socks. Like maybe I'll knit the Fairy Maiden socks in like a brown or a grayish or something in the future, because it was a fun stitch pattern, but it just didn't feel right. So I frogged it again, and then I cast on the Autumn Savory socks, and that ended up being, those are toe up, but that ended up being way too big, like way too big. This is ginormous, and again the gauge was pretty loose, so I just cut that off and I cast on the Oona socks instead, and that finally worked out. And so now I have this sock whip. I'll be knitting my second sock, or I am knitting my second sock, and I'll be able to wear these soonish. They are so insanely adorable, and I am having the most fun with this knit. That's like my commute or on the go knit for now. I like switch between this one and the flowerknot socks, but at this moment I'm only able to knit on the Oona socks because the flowerknot socks are on a break until I finish my Amy slipover. Now, the next new cast on that I have to talk about is actually the full-on stockinette knit. I was not planning to allow myself to cast on a new garment until I was gonna cast on the Madeline sweater, but I ended up getting a pretty bad throat infection and being like bedbound or couch-bound for a few days, and I didn't have a stockinette whip to be knitting on. And I don't know if you're like me or not, but when I get sick, the only thing I feel like knitting is just a simple stockinette. So I cast on a cumulus blouse that I've been wanting to knit for a really long time. This is my second cumulus blouse. I'm about this far into the body right now. I'm adapting the cumulus blouse pattern to have picot edges rather than I-cord edges. I think this is looking really cute, but the picot edge is like, it's a folded picot hem. I looked up a YouTube tutorial to see how to knit this, and I picked up the amount of stitches Petite Knit tells you to pick up for the I-cord edge, but it's like folding over itself a little bit, so I have to see what happens when I block this, because I think this is gonna stretch a little bit with blocking, might like actually sit nicely. So I'm gonna block this first, and then I'm gonna see if I have to redo the neckline, but I do think it looks incredibly cute and like makes the cumulus blouse look a tad elevated. I'm going to do a picot edge on, or like a folded picot hem on the body as well. I'm nearly there for the body because I want it to be a bit cropped, and for the sleeves. I think I'm going to go down a needle size down to a 3mm needle for the picot edge. I'm knitting this on the recommended 4.5mm needles, and I'm gonna do some decreases at the bottom of the body and at the bottom of the sleeves. Normally for the cumulus blouse pattern, you do decreases as you do an I-cord bind off, which gives you like a little bit of a cinched in look, and I kind of want that look for this version of the cumulus blouse as well, because I am planning on wearing this to a wedding late September, and I want to wear this with a green dainty lacy dress that I have, and I think the cinched in hemline and cuffs will just add to the like fancifulness of this blouse. I didn't want it to be, I don't know, I just thought a basic cumulus blouse as Petite Knit intends the pattern would be a bit too boring for like a wedding and to wear over the dress, because it's a lace slip dress and all of the pretty details will be hidden underneath this cumulus blouse, so all you'll be able to see is the green skirt when I wear this. So I wanted this to be like quite cute, because maybe it'll be like a bit cold in the evening or in the morning. It's gonna be a wedding in Poland that I go to, and I know from having lived in Warsaw that it can get really cold in the summer in the evening, so it might be the same in Wrocław where I'm going, and yeah, that's where the wedding's gonna be. So I don't know, I thought I'd get started on this already in the spring. Maybe I'll get some wear out of it in the spring as well, because it's gonna be cute and dainty and like festive enough, but it's also going to be cute enough to just wear to work over a pair of jeans, I think. I'm using Dusty Sea Green knitting for olive soft silk mohair. I think it matches my eye color perfectly. Wait, do you see that? Ta-da! And I think it looks like a perfect green gray to wear over the pretty bright forest green that my dress is. There's another look at it, and I'm at my cute bee nails. I have bee and flowers on my nails. There's not a lot to say about the cumulus blouse pattern. A lot of people have knit one. A lot of people have knit multiple ones, as I am doing now. I'm on my second one. It's just such a quick knit. It's such a fun knit. It's so easy, and I wear my first one all the time. I'm quite sure I'll be wearing this one all the time. The other one I knit is in a grayish soft blue, so it's also like gray, barely a color, and this is also gray and barely a green. So I think that's just my perfect recipe for a cumulus blouse, and I don't think this one will be a miss. I think this one is going to be just as strong of a hit as my other cumulus blouse is, and I'm so excited for it. I just need to finish up the body now and then start the sleeves. I'm so excited. If my nose looks a little bit red, it's because I have a pollen allergy and 'tis the season, you know. Now, on to acquisitions. I'll start with the yarns that I forgot to talk about in my last podcast when I forgot to talk about acquisitions, which might be why I'll have so many acquisitions to talk about right now, because I'm gonna have to talk through all of the yarn that I bought in the past few months. So I think that spans like January up to now, and it's a lot because I had room in my stash. I had a lot of patterns to plan for and a lot of opportunities to buy yarn at a discount, so that's exactly what I did. So this first yarn order is actually a little bit irresponsible, but I ended up buying the last 11 balls of Istex Let Lopi they had at one of my local yarn stores in the color Milky Way. I've become obsessed with this yarn. I've been wanting to try really rustic Icelandic yarn for the longest time, and I became obsessed with this one and the color ever since one of the people in the Heart Chain Sweater Double Dopamine group chat knit along situation knit her version in this exact yarn and colorway. I am going to use this yarn for my second heart chain sweater I will be knitting in the fall, I think. That's going to be absolutely stunning. I'm not sure whether I want to hold the yarn single or add a mohair to make it a little bit softer and like to soften up the variegation. I might end up adding like a soft blue mohair to this, or like a dusty like orchid pinkish purple maybe. I think that would look really, really cute depending on like what color I want to pop out the most. I think if I add a blue mohair to this, the blue tones are going to pop out more. If I add a purple, it's going to look more purple. If I add a pink, it's going to look more pink. So I need to figure that out first. If I just want it to keep looking like this, I could just go for this as well. Not sure if it's not too rustic for me though to wear as like a crew neck sweater. I might end up needing to decide that I'll need to knit a cardigan or a jacket out of this because this is very, very rustic. If it turns out to not be fine, I might end up knitting a cardigan out of this, but we'll see in the future. For now, I am just insanely excited to have this in my stash. This is just 100% a dopamine buy. I needed the dopamine. I needed to feel good for a second, and this definitely makes me feel amazing just to have. I don't know. Look at it. I have nothing to say for myself except for I have no regrets. So yeah, that's yarn purchase number 1. The next yarns I purchased, I got because they were on sale, and I had to, I think back in January or February, and I needed to get more of the baby merino, the drops baby merino for the baby blanket that I just finished, and I didn't want to place a yarn order for just that. I saw there was a sale going on for some Liscorn yarn, so I decided to get some yarn for my spring and summer knitting because I did not have enough yarn in stash for that knitting yet. So I just ended up getting this tin line, which is one of my favorite summer yarns, in 2 different colors. I got this color kit to knit an Ophelia blouse by Star-Crossed Knits. I got 6 skeins of this, and I got 5 skeins of this pink color, this beautiful pink color, to knit another blouse number 1. I'm going to hold this double by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I knit one blouse number 1 last spring in the blue hortensia colorway, the blue hydrangea color, and I'm just gonna make an exact copy of that one with this pink. The number of this color is 4632. I think it's Rusa Lavendel or Pink Lavender, and then this one is the color Kit, that is 1015. The Sonnesgarn Tin Line is a very interesting yarn base. It combines 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. It just makes for the most wearable summer and spring knits, in my opinion, especially for long sleeves. It holds up so well if you put it in the laundry machine, which is just brilliant, and it's so breathable, but it keeps you warm at the same time. So I'm going to try and whip out one DK weight garment with it held double, and then one long sleeve. I'm gonna knit the Ophelia top long sleeved, which is why I need 6 balls of this at a fingering gauge. I think it's gonna be really pretty. I think this putty is a perfect neutral for me, and I think this pink lavender is a perfect dusty pop of color for myself. It also perfectly matches my knitting journal. Ta-da! That's so cute. Now the next yarn I ordered, I'm not sure whether I would have been able to include it in my last podcast or not. I think it's like somewhere borderline possible to include it in my last podcast or not, but that is a order that I placed at Knitting for Olive because they were having a spring sale. So I just went ahead and ordered all of the yarn that I needed for my spring, summer, and even fall, like possibly like summer fall knitting already. Those of you who follow me on Instagram have seen this already, but I ended up getting yarn for 3 projects in 3 different colors. These 2 blues look very similar, but they're different colors and a different yarn base. I'll start with this one. This is the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. I got 10 balls of this actually as my birthday present from my partner. So we got it just beforehand because it was on sale, and it makes sense to buy yarn when it is on sale and to save money because yarn is expensive enough as is, especially if you want to get good quality ethical yarn like the ones from Knitting for Olive. This is the color Elephant Blue. This is a fingering weight 70% cotton, 30% merino yarn, and I will be holding it double to knit the Knitting for Olive pattern called the Madeline sweater. It will be my first all over lace sweater that I knit, and I am super stressed out about it but also super stoked. I'm going to cast it on my birthday. If anyone feels like knitting it along with me, let me know and I'll create a little group chat because I think it's always really fun to knit a more challenging knit together with other people, and it's just fun to be able to ask each other questions and like encourage each other. This is going to be a long-term knit for me, so I don't care whether you want to knit this like in a few weeks or over the course of a few months. I'll leave the group chat open for as long as people need it to just do some fun little community building. So yeah, I'm gonna be knitting that with this yarn. I'm gonna be casting that on this week, and if you want to join me, if you want to be in a little group chat of people knitting this together, shoot me a DM over on Instagram and I'll add you to the chat when I create it. The next yarn I got from the Knitting for Olive sale is also a blue yarn, but this is the Knitting for Olive Merino in Dusty Dove Blue. This is a 100% merino yarn, light fingering weight, and I am obsessed with this color. I've been wanting to try this one for so long. I think it'll suit me really, really well, and I'm going to use it to knit a Knitting for Olive Barbaro blouse. I'll probably only cast this on somewhere in the summer or when I've gotten through most of my Madeline sweater already, because this is also an all-over lace bottom-up garment. However, this one is knit on 3mm needles with the fingering yarn held single rather than double as it is in the Madeline sweater, and it is more fitted, but yeah, with the long sleeves and everything, I think this is going to be not an easy knit. Maybe I'll also create a group chat for this one when I cast it on, but this is a project for in the long term. I just got the yarn ahead of time because it was on sale and I thought that was a smart thing to do. The next project I got yarn for is a summer tank top. I don't know which one just yet. I just knew I wanted to get 3 balls of this Knitting for Olive Merino in the color Artichoke Purple because I've been wanting to try out this color for the longest time. Another perfect match for my knitting journal. I just love this color. I think it suits me pretty well, and I'm gonna knit a camisole with this. I really just think this is my favorite color for this year. Like, I'm really feeling dusty blues and dusty pinkish purples, and I'm so excited to knit the garments that I have planned with these yarns. Next, I placed an order with Mayo Garn for the first time in my life because I had a gift card for the yarn brand that I did not want to go to waste. I spent an entire year just pondering what yarn I wanted to buy with the gift card. It was just impossible for me to make a decision, but the time crunch forced me to finally make a decision now, and I did. I decided, ooh, ASMR. I decided I wanted to try out their mohair for a mohair sweater. I got the dusty blue mohair. They delivered it so beautifully that I just kept it in its box. If you're interested to see how it compares to Knitting for Olive's Dusty Dove Blue, it's a tiny bit warmer and a tiny bit darker, but I really love that. For me, this is more of a spring dusty blue and this is more of a fall dusty blue because it's slightly greener. I have 8 balls of this, so I think I'll end up using it for like a very fall-y mohair sweater. Like in my head, blouses like the Cumulus blouse are spring knits, mohair knits, and then sweaters like the Michaela sweater by Moreca Knit, I think, or the Stockholm sweater by Petite Knit are fall mohair sweaters, if that makes sense. I think they're at a bit of a tighter gauge. They're more traditional sweater fitting garments rather than blousey garments, if that makes sense. But I'm gonna be using this one for a garment like that in the fall. This mohair is 70% Super Kid mohair and 30% silk, and per 25 grams, you get 210 meters of yarn. Stay tuned for my fall knitting to see what I end up knitting with this. I'm very excited for that already. Now, I also went to a knitting fair this month. I went to the breidagen in Breda, and I picked up a lot of fun sock yarns and a lot of cute notions. First off, I got this beautiful basic sock hand-dyed yarn from Woolmetsverve by Sylvia. My friend Yasmin picked it out for a pair of socks that I'm going to be knitting for her as a gift for her PhD defense later this year. It's this beautiful pastel-y lilac-y pink with some periwinkle in there, some more peachy tones, and a tiny bit of blue even. It is absolutely ethereal. So stunning, and I think it will make the most beautiful pair of fingering weight socks. I'm sad there was only one of these left because I would have loved to pick one of these up for myself as well. I think I'm going to knit the Dreaming of Spring socks, and that's what I'll be knitting with these. Unfortunately, this was the last one, but I did end up finding this beautiful hank for myself instead. It's picking up quite warm toned, it seems, on camera right now, but it is a very neutral, even cool leaning, dusty pink with some pretty brownish, maroony speckles throughout. I think this will be so cute for a sock for myself. I felt so drawn to this yarn because it matches my Frankie Gensid exactly. That was the sweater I was wearing to the breidagen in Breda, and this is just the hand-dyed little sister. It is so absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to knit up a pair of socks with this for myself. Yeah. These are the yarns that I picked up from Woolmetsverve's stand, both super pretty. I also picked up a sock yarn, the Soulful Sock by the Mindful Creators. This is in the color Sky. There was a sample sock knit in this color and I just fell in love with it. I had to get it for myself. I think these will make the prettiest socks I have ever seen in my life. It's just a beautiful spring color. It's very soft too. Yeah, I can't wait to cast on a pair of socks with this. I really think I'm in my sock era now, and I feel so excited to be knitting a lot of sock patterns. Femme from the Mindful Creators was also just so kind. She's such a sweet person, and I was so happy to be able to support her by picking up something from her stand. She also had like other very pretty colors, and she had a pre-order going, but I'd already bought so much yarn that I couldn't really justify for myself to get something from her pre-order. And of course now, afterwards, I deeply regret not getting the patchwork sock yarn from the pre-order or the wildflower color from her pre-order. But yeah, I'm just hoping she'll make colors like those again in the future, and I'll end up getting some sock yarn in similar colors from her in the future. I hope, because I really regret not getting more of the colors, but I'm so happy I got to pick this up. It's so pretty. I'm so excited for it. I also ended up getting something from the Knitted Clouds stand, and they gave me this beautiful bag. It's so cute and pretty. I'm thinking I should cut this little image out and hang it on my wall or something. So what I learned from this stand is that this is a yarn store that sells sustainable, like good for the planet, good for you yarns. And one of them that they had is this beautiful merino. It is the rosy green wool merino, lovely merino treat. And it is made in Portugal. It is 210 meters per 100 grams. And it is 100% organic virgin wool merino. This is the softest thing I have ever felt. I got the color Dragonfly. I wanted to knit a hat with it, but like all of the colors they had were just so up my alley. It was a very expensive yarn, but I really wanted to treat myself to it and to support this yarn store or this local business. I think I'll definitely be supporting them more in the future, and I'm glad I have their card and their little baggie and this one to remind me of their existence so I know to shop there in the future. I think this yarn is going to make the cutest little hat to wear with my trench coat in the fall, and I'm going to have so much fun knitting this, but until then this will just be the most precious, softest merino yarn I have in my stash that I can just feel and be happy about whenever I need it. I also ended up getting some notions. I'll go through those relatively quickly. I got some petite knit barber cord that was being sold at the breda. I had some from Hobby before, and it pains me to say that the petite knit ones are much better quality. Like, it's a night and day difference. I also ended up getting these cutie patootie needle stoppers and a whole lot of buttons. I got 2 little baggies of little buttons because, especially if you're knitting like baby knits or something, you might end up needing little buttons at one point, so I just got those because they were fairly cheap. I got these purpley brownish grayish ones because I think they look like exactly the color I want to knit a cardigan in the future, and they were so pretty and shiny and cute. I really couldn't stop myself from picking them up. They look more brown on camera than they are in real life. They're actually more of a purple. I think they match the purple artichoke pretty well. Oh yeah, see, now you can see they're definitely more purple than brown. I got these soft blue, dusty blue buttons for when I end up knitting a soft blue or dusty blue cardigan sometime in the future, or maybe to use with my Barbaro blouse. I think that's a pretty good match. I think it matched the soft blue from Knitting for Olive even better than this one though. And then I got these buttery yellow buttons for the yellowish knits I plan to knit in the future because I've really been liking yellows lately. Surprise, surprise, everyone has been, but I just got these because they were relatively cheap and they were just so pretty. Now, my last acquisition is this. I am so lucky to have made so many nice friends through Instagram and YouTube. One of those friends is the coolest person ever, and her name is Freya. She goes by Freya's Knits on Instagram, and she figured out how to hand dye your own yarn. So she invited me over. We spent 2 afternoons hand dyeing mini skeins, and I have a total set of 25 mini skeins that I dyed by hand. If you want more information about how I did this, shoot me a DM over on Instagram or let me know in the comments if there's enough people who are interested. I'll leave some information in the description, or I'll pin a comment in the comment section, or I can give you some more information through DM over on Instagram if you hit me up. This is the first one I dyed, and this is a hot pink for one of my best friends who I taught how to knit and who loves hot pink colors, so I thought it would be cute to gift her a little mini skein that I dyed myself. And then I also ended up dyeing several dusty, lavendery, lilac-y ones. Wait, let me just look for them. I'm going to be giving one of these to my friend Victoria from Blank Stitches. I'm gonna send it over to the UK. I think it's going to be either this one or this one. This one turned out a bit too warm for my taste, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna send her pictures. I'm gonna let her pick either one of these. This one has also a little bit of like peachy tones in there, so I dyed up this one that's a bit more cool, just in case she would like this one more. The other ones I'm gonna end up using in probably the blanket that I'll end up knitting with these, because I tried to knit up a rainbow. So I'll go through the rainbow with you now. I managed to knit up some reddish colors and some orangey colors, like peachy oranges, and like a greenish yellow. I still need like a butter yellow somewhere in there. I'm quite certain I want to knit a blanket, like a human-sized blanket of the baby blanket that I just knit, but because I used 20 grams of yarn, which this is 20 grams of merino sock yarn, because I used 20 grams per color repeat and I want it to be wider, I think I'm gonna do less, like thinner stripes, and I'm gonna need much more yarn than 25 mini skeins. So I don't think my rainbow is complete just yet. I need to have a bit more orange and red and definitely butter yellow to fit in between these colors, because this one is leaning more green already. Speaking of green, these are the greens I dyed up. Ta-da! Some of them lean a bit more blue already, so I do need more yellowy greens like this one. Then this is like a little monster that's too dark to add into my blanket, but it was one that didn't look too pretty, and I ended up adding more dye until it looked like this. I think this is gonna be so cute for a colorwork sock, or like for sock details. This one is a very light bluish lilac. I don't think it fits in with the other colors too much either, but it would be really cute to use in a sock. Then I dyed up some blues that I have right here. I need more less saturated and like something dusty petroleum-y as well. And then I have not too many of these lilac-y ones, but I have the two dusty warmer lilacs. This is my absolute favorite one that I dyed up. I think I'm gonna be making more of these transition shades to use between color groups. This is just a perfect transition from blue to purple in my opinion. Then I have these gorgeous pinks that I dyed up, dusty pinks. And this Frankenhank. This looks so ugly right now, but wait till I open it up. I tried a rainbow one. So yeah, I think if I end up using this as like a stripe detail in socks, it might, or in a garment, whatever, in some way, I might be able to make this like a rainbowy effect. That would be so cute if that works out. But yeah, it does look pretty ugly, and it will look pretty ugly in a little hank until then. I can't believe I managed to get through yapping about all of this in one go. I hope you ended up liking this video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Please let me know what you were knitting on while you were watching this in the comments. I always love to get those comments. They make my day. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.